Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Mr. Cook, I have a question. I don't know if we actually need to change the agenda, but I would like to request that discussion is opened on policy review, mainly 9B, the board director policy changes. We typically don't have discussion on first reads, but I'd like to request that we do tonight.
Discussion on informational item?
Yes.
Sure. Board can have a motion to approve the agenda for the June 15, 2023 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Patron comments. The Board of Education welcomes comments from its community. A period of public comment is set aside at the beginning of each regular Board of Education meeting. Board Policy 0412 regarding public participation in board meetings is available on board docs. Those interested in speaking during patron comments are encouraged to visit the district website for more information about addressing the board. During patron comments, residents of the district and staff members are invited to address the board on issues related to the school district. Speakers are called forward in the order of sign up, and each speaker has 3 minutes to make their remarks. Please remember that only one speaker is allowed at the podium at a time, and combining or giving your time to someone else is not permitted. The board appreciates you've taken the time to come this evening, and we value both your input and perspective. I'd like to remind everyone that we expect that speakers will remain civil and respectful when giving comments. If anyone fails to comply with board policies, regulations, and rules, we reserve the right to cut those 3 minutes short. For your convenience, our 3-minute clock is ready. We welcome Grayson Joseph. Step forward. All right, next we have Terry Greer.
I have something to hand out. Can I do that?
Yes,
You just take one and pass it down. Thank you. So good evening. My name is Terry Gear, and I do reside in the Francis Howell School District. And even though I never had children attend this school, my grandchildren currently attend school in the district. I'm also a volunteer for Look Ahead America, which is a national organization with the mission to stand up for patriotic Americans who feel they have been forgotten. Nowhere is this more apparent than in public or actually government-funded schools. I'm uncertain as to when this began to happen, but it appears that patriotism is no longer promoted to our students and that they have lost interest and do not realize the importance of being a citizen in the United States of America. So one thing I did find out, just kind of checking around, I checked with my grandkids, they do the Pledge of Allegiance every day at school. I'm really happy to hear that. I also wasn't sure if we still required Constitution studies of our high school students, and I think I did find that as part of the curriculum, as well as competency. So again, that makes me very happy. Look Ahead America has put together a resolution that could and should be adopted by U.S. educational institutions. This is the reason that I came today, to present this resolution to you, the school board and decision makers in the district. I would ask that you review the document and do what you can as Americans to help promote these ideals to our students. Pledge to do this. For myself, the things I see in our great United States these days hurt my soul. But more importantly, I fear for the lives of those children currently in schools that are learning that they should hate the country, as well as themselves for being who they are. I do not see a reality of independence or aspiration to succeed. So I would like to see the school district be one to adopt and publish these policies. We want to educate successful students, but also proud Americans and citizens of the United States. And if I could, I'd just like to read the last two paragraphs of this document that I handed out. The primary educational mission of this school district is to instill in our students a pride in the nation that our founders have created and to develop a clear, unbiased understanding of America's glorious history and the promise it holds for untold generations to come. We must instill in our students a love and a respect of this nation, its history, institutions, culture, people, and future, and to embrace our great honor to live not just in this nation, but for this nation, to work tirelessly to preserve and protect it, and as our founders did, pledge to its survival our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kim Hutton.
Good evening. My name is Kim Hutton, and I've lived in St. Charles my entire life. I come from a long line of farming families that held extremely conservative values and were devout Catholics. I'm also the proud mom of a transgender child who told us we had their gender wrong at the age of 2.5. After almost 5 years of gentle correction, endless therapy, and ultimately the recommendation of 3 experts in this field, we supported our child's social transition at 7 years old and over time all of the medical care that he needed. This naturally occurring transgender human experience is woven into families of all value systems, religions, and races. Excuse me. Today's binary gender model is simply a classification of gender into 2 distinct opposite forms of masculine and feminine, created and imposed by culture, religion, or other societal pressures, and does not account for the diversity of gender identities and expression that exist. The fact is that gender variance is documented as far back as the Neolithic and Bronze Ages. Did you know that the brightest scientific and medical minds in the world have established peer-reviewed medical standards of care to ensure transgender youth live happy and productive lives? In the United States, the most respected medical associations support gender-affirming care for transgender children, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, Pediatric Endocrine Society, the Endocrine Society, Society for Adolescent Health and Medicine. I could go on and on. These medical associations acknowledge the grave danger faced by transgender children who are not supported. A suicide risk factor of over 40%. You must consider this before making any harmful and unnecessary policy that could result in extreme danger to a transgender student. If it ain't broke, you won't want to be the person held accountable for the damage. Before tonight, you could leave and say, well, I didn't know or I didn't realize, but now you can't say that. Now you know the risk factor, and you all know of all the medical organizations recognizing the transgender experience and that the lack of support can result in suicide ideation. On a more positive note, as a parent of a transgender child, I speak from experience, not opinion. And the unconditional love and support we raised our child with has resulted in him being smart, funny, friendly, and wildly well-liked adult with countless friends. His recent 3 years at a Francis Howell School District high school only increased his confidence due to the support of teachers, administrators, and student body. He changed out in the boys' locker room and was voted to his school's prom court by fellow students. Never did I dream this could be his high school experience. Well done, Francis Howell School District. You should be so proud that the superintendent, principals, teachers, and students so
Thank you.
brilliantly
Your time is
navigated
up.
this experience. This is a gold star for all of you in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Next up, we have Daniel Marion.
Good evening, board members, administration. My name is Daniel Marion. I'm a school counselor at John Weldon Elementary and a member of FHEA, both as a building representative as a member of the union executive board. I stand before you to ask the current board members to please think about the things you're saying from this dais. The things you say really do matter. You represent our school district, parents, students, staff, and patrons. What you say from the dais in your capacity as a representative of our district reflects on us all. For example, I listened to you debate my job position when it was being proposed that a school counselor position be added at Daniel Boone under grant funds appropriated for just such a use. I listened as you debated the low-cost use of telehealth instead of adding the staffing position. That will stay with your counseling staff in the district, that you publicly proposed that we be replaced by telehealth, that a student in crisis tearing up a classroom could be asked to stop and speak to a counselor on an iPad or a telephone. The worst affront, however, has come when board members congratulate each other publicly from the dais for staying awake and alert through our district board meetings. You have been elected as the best representatives to serve our community in making decisions that have already significantly impacted our students, staff, parents, and patrons. Please do not so carelessly make light of the lives of our students and staff for whom you are having the job to make monumental, life-altering decisions. It should be your honor and privilege to sit where you do and wield the ability to affect a child's life as a student now and as it carries into their future. Your jobs are crucial to everyone related to the Francis Howell School District. If it is a trial to endure staying awake as you hear and contemplate the issues that pertain to our district, perhaps as you consider your words as I asked, you may also consider whether this is a job you should continue in representing us all. Thank you.
Next, we have Lori Leary.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to keep it pretty quick tonight. I just wanted to point out that I noticed some discrepancies on the policy committee meeting minutes from May 30th in regard to the 4 pin items. All other items say approved and moved to first reading. However, the 4 pin items state feedback will be provided to President Bertrand. 2 of those items are on the agenda for tonight. As a patron that reads agendas, I feel it necessary for the public to know where the policy committee stands on every policy, revision, or pin request, and therefore the pin request should also be made public. If the policy committee didn't recommend moving the request forward, why didn't it just state that? But it moved forward to tonight. So why did the board choose to move forward these items? Many of you ran on a platform of transparency. The public expects the same.
Next, we have Chris Brooks.
Well, folks, it's good to be back after a short hiatus for a couple months here. I wanted to start off with a couple notes of appreciation. I wanted to mention appreciating the extra questions and answers that have been provided from the board and the discussion happening with the administration. They've been very informative. Discussions during the meetings have certainly been much more detailed and in-depth on things. To the earlier patron's comment, I deplore gotcha statements, and I hope you take from this the idea that you should feel free to speak openly in public, and I despise the fact that people would attempt to use discussion items in an attempt to cut you down or to grade your options and your ability to perform on the board. As anyone in the engineering industry understands, it's important to have free and open discussions when trying to come to a proper decision. What really should be discussed later by everyone is the decision that's reached, and not necessarily the discussion. So thank you for having open and honest discussions, and I hope you continue to do that. I also really want to appreciate the budget department and the new budget format, much more readable over previous years. And although I wasn't in a previous meeting when the consultant presented that, I wanted to compliment her on her presentation as well. So thank you for that. I wanted to have a moment tonight to comment on the curriculum that's being proposed here. You'll note that there's the wellness curriculum. I don't necessarily have any objections to the content itself, but I want to reiterate my longstanding objection that the new template format that the district is using for curriculum rewrites is way too boring. There's no detail on it, right? There's no information. You as a board is up here trying to make a decision on the content and what's going to be in the curriculum and the course. And instead what you get is a recitation of standards along with a couple of reworded standards to be the enduring understandings and not much else. Previous curriculums may have been a bit too much, but at least they had things such as assessments, activities, resources, suggestions, ideas, definitions, and things that help the community understand the actual content of the course. If there's anything the past 3 years have taught us, it's that while we can hopefully trust individuals involved in education, it's still important to be able to verify what's going on in classrooms. So given the move towards transparency that I hope we're talking about here, in the spirit of that, I would hope that the curriculum gets revised to maybe not be quite as long as the old stuff, but still continue to contain details. And I urge you as a board to let the administration know that curriculum without details of content will be approved. As long as I got 30 seconds here at the end, I want to do a brief comment on the new director of proposed policies tonight, showing appreciation for the automatic sunsetting of resolutions. A resolution is a brief snapshot, a moment in time of the desires of the board. And it's not really fair for future boards to be held to that standard unless they want to renew it. So while I appreciate the importance of perhaps passing resolutions, it is still more important to understand that when those board members are no longer on the board, the new board should not be held by that. So I look forward to this becoming policy. Thank you.
Next, we have Jamie Martin.
Good evening, board. I'm not as prepared as I usually am to speak to you tonight, but I did want to come forward to address the resolution that'll be up for a first read tonight. I especially want to address not only you, but our community and make clear how I feel about this and what I think is behind it. I think we should say the quiet parts out loud. I think we should say why. I think we should tell our motives, and let's be honest. Francis Howell families never liked the statement against racism. Francis Howell families didn't want it to come forward. They've complained about it since it was signed. And 5 of you now sit here who are endorsed by that organization. Why would we sunset these proposals? Why would we, these statements, these resolutions? Because the board does not want to acknowledge racism. The board doesn't want to support its black students, not 5 of you anyway. You have been funded, you have been supported, you've been installed on this board for exactly this purpose, and you've been waiting to do this since it was signed. So I just want our community to understand what the motives are here and to know clearly why this policy is being floated. Thank you.
Next, we have Becky Harmon.
All right, good evening. My name is Becky Harmon, and I have been a patron for 20 years, an active parent in the district for 15, and I'm an employee at Independence Elementary for the past 7. I'm here with my husband tonight, and we're the proud parents of 2 children in the district. One who has graduated in 2021, and one who's going to be a junior at Francis Howell High School. One that is a junior at Francis Howell High School this next year is transgender. In addition to that, we are very, very proud to have a nephew who is a student in Francis Howell. He is one of approximately 46 Black students out of the 750 students that attend Independence Elementary. I'm here tonight to address my concern with the new board policy proposal regarding the organization, philosophy, and goals, and basically that sunsetting policy for any resolution. I'm particularly worried about the wording in the policy where there's a lack of open discussion about any resolutions and that any future directions can be made, and instead the sunsetting procedures just go into effect after a matter of time and they just eventually disappear. In my opinion, this is not a very transparent way to conduct business. The community has a right to hear open dialogue and rationale behind all decisions. Before this policy goes forward and specifically dissolves the resolution in response to racism and discrimination, my family would very much like to know the current board members' thoughts, beliefs, and views as how they feel regarding this resolution. It is relevant to the current work in Francis Howell. How is it not relevant to the work and the improvement that our district needs and to continue to strive for and successfully move forward in supporting all students in all of our families? Given our current cultural climate, just as it was back in 2020, having a resolution in response to racism and discrimination is most definitely still a need. In all actuality, I highly suggest that the board please revisit the current resolution and consider making some additional revisions. Specifically, making additional statements against LGBTQ discrimination. This would showcase the important message of the previous stance, along with making the resolution more relevant to what is also needed now. If you're not aware, the Human Rights Campaign declared a national state of emergency in the U.S. against LGBTQ community, and that is real, and it's happening here in Missouri. It's happening to our students, it's happening to our families, and Francis Howell should be a safe haven where everyone feels accepted, respected, celebrated for who they are. But unfortunately, that is not the case.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I got here late. Can I have a chance to speak? My name is Grayson Joseph, and I got here late. Can I please speak? We got a few minutes left. Is it okay if I speak, please?
This is out of order. Your name was called on.
I know, but can I please speak? This is very important, sir.
Next up, we have FHEA.
Oh, lovely.
Good evening, board, district administration, and staff, parents, and patrons. I am Anita Keener, Francis Howell Education Association president. In 2020, this school district had one of its proudest moments as the Board of Education stepped out to support our students of color and stand together with the resolution in response to racism and discrimination. Educators throughout the district were so inspired that they requested copies to hang in their classrooms and buildings. Student leaders praised the board for taking this stand. Last year, the board wrote a resolution opposing any legislative moves to eliminate property tax, which would have put the funding for Francis Howell School District in jeopardy. Although educators supported the move, they were not making copies of that resolution to hang in their classrooms. It is for this reason that this policy seems targeted at the 2020 response to racism and discrimination, because the third paragraph of the policy details how resolutions that sunset should be scrubbed from buildings and websites. Only the 2020 resolution is likely anywhere but board docs. And so we ask ourselves, why write a policy that quietly sunsets resolutions instead of writing a policy that would have each newly seated board review and vote on whether to reaffirm previous resolutions? Our educators and district leaders are still committed to creating an equitable and anti-racist system that honors and elevates all. Why is the board not willing to reaffirm this statement? Our district is already struggling to attract teachers and staff of color Wouldn't reaffirming this resolution help prospective employees believe FHSD is a community where they too will be supported? We urge this board to consider the optics of this policy to our Black and brown students and really our whole community. Francis Howell School District has historically taken the lead on change initiatives that have helped us be the success that we are today. If this board does not believe in this resolution, we believe our community, our patrons, our staff, but most importantly, our students deserve to hear in open session why you do not. Also, in 25 years, we haven't been the lowest paid in the county. We are struggling to keep and hire teachers. We will have a larger surplus this year than expected. It is time to go back to the table and negotiate. Time to reward the teachers that are staying here and to the new people that are taking a chance with us. Please direct administration to go back to the table. Thank you.
FISPA?
Good evening, Board, Superintendent, Rumpus, administration, and all patrons. My name is Jordan Fruit, and I'm the president of FISPA. Today, we're here representing all the support staff in the district. For those that may not be familiar with FISPA, we are the paraprofessionals in classrooms helping all children learn. We are the nurses taking care of sick children every day, the maintenance guy patching holes and guaranteeing safety throughout the buildings, the custodians who are here every day cleaning entire buildings and getting them shined up for the start of the school year. We're the secretaries that keep order in the building, keeping it all afloat. Interpreters that are here so that all students are heard and communication is clearly seen. Grounds that keep the schools beautiful. All of us are here for the kids. Every single one of them. That's what makes our jobs different from a typical job. We do a service for this community for the sake of every single child, no matter what their background is or where they live. They are all children of Francis Howell and all deserve the best of the best. Thank you and have a great night.
Next, we have our Proposition S update. Mr. Butler?
Hi, good evening. I'm Matt Frank with S. Wilson. I'm filling in for Jeremy tonight. He's out of town and couldn't make it. So I'll be giving the update. Lots of exciting stuff happening at the Francis Howell project. If you've been by in the last month, you can see there's a ton of work going on. Most prominently, the drive from Hackman Road to the elementary school is gone. We've demolished it, we're replacing it. So everything's going great there. The weather's been good, dry weather, we're working a lot. So that's going excellently. We've got a lot of canopies on the exterior of the building. The windows are being installed. Brick veneer is wrapping up. By the end of July, all the masons should be done and off the site. All the masonry work will be done. That was a huge scope, so super exciting to be finished with that. You'll also notice a lot of concrete work going on. Curbs and are being installed so you can start to see the parking lots forming in the drive lanes. Things you can't really see from the outside, framing's wrapping up, interior to the building. We've got a lot of painting going on. We've kind of, the south side of the building, that half is painted on the interior, and we're working to the north side of the building. We're in the main gym right now painting that area. And then we have the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection work going on. That too, we're moved to the north side of the building, starting work in the kitchen areas and the commons, administrative areas. We've got the big duct work going up in the gyms. So a ton of work going on there as well. This is a drone photo, June 2023. And really, since this was taken, a lot more work has been completed. But a couple exciting elements is you can definitely see the track in the field at this point. Both of the curbs are installed to designate the track surface. The field's in place, goalposts are installed, looking great. And then that large rectangular section on the south side of the project, those are the new tennis courts. It's a post-tension concrete slab. Several tennis courts will be on there. The concrete's installed, fencing's in about a month they'll come back and put the color on the tennis courts and stripe it to designate the courts. And you can kind of see some of the drive lanes and parking areas taking shape on the south side of the building. You'll also notice most of the masonry work is complete on the exterior. So, let's see, move on. Here's a little closer view of the track and the stadium. You can see the goalpost installed. We've got foundations and steel in the ground for the scoreboard that'll be coming in a couple months. So pretty exciting there. I know that the students will be happy to have that back again. A little closer up view of the tennis courts. So as you can see, it's just concrete right now. The color will be coming in about a month. We just need the concrete to cure. So we're here. And then the fencing around the tennis courts is installed. We're back interior to the building. This is the lower level area in the industrial arts section. Lockers installed, it's lockers, but it's kind of an exciting point because we're to the stage of construction where we are installing the lockers, and most of those are installed on the project at this point. We're back on the main level here, and this is a corridor to the music wing. Again, it's a corridor, but it's exciting because it leads to music areas, lots of MEP stuff you can see in the ceiling, piping, the CMU, block walls are installed. This is interior to the music room. This is one of two areas. What you see here is the metal framing, and each one of those rooms are the individual practice rooms for the students. So they close the door, practice their instruments. And then this larger section would be for the larger group practicing. And there's two of those spaces in the music room. We'll be starting drywall in this area in about 2 or 3 weeks. This picture here, so this is actually taken from the second floor, and we're at the top of the learning stairs looking down over the commons. So learning stairs are a prominent fixture in the building. When you walk in the main entrance, you will be facing the learning stairs, and it's kind of a collaborative area. There's some big steps with outlets. Students can charge their devices, they can meet there, collaborate, etc. And this is overlooking what will be a big open area to the commons. So on your left would be the auditorium and the cafeteria area. On the right is administrative areas. This is a fun picture. After school was out, we had a couple days where all the teachers got to come through, and we took them on tours to see all their spaces. Lots of happy faces, and I think they were just excited to see their actual room they're going to be teaching in, and the places they're going to be using. So that was pretty fun. We had them out on a Friday and a Monday, and they all got quite a bit of time in the building looking around. Okay, so here's the drone video. You get a lot better view of the roadway. Yeah, so this, for those of you that haven't been by or can't really see it well from Hackman, the drive is gone. We've demolished it. We brought the grade back up. We've cut some areas we've raised about 3 or 4 feet. Since this picture was taken, which you can see this was on 6/6, we've got most of the curbs installed, so the driveways, drive lanes are all designated, the light poles are in, and we're looking forward to starting installing asphalt pretty soon. We're trying to wrap this up at the end of July, so whatever everyone's doing to keep the weather dry, keep doing it. It's helping a lot. So pretty exciting to get that going. There's a lot of planning on this. We spent a lot of time meeting with Henderson and the high school to make sure that the camps weren't impacted, that necessary people could get to Henderson, so we're keeping access available for that. This kind of big dirt area to the left side, that's a retention pond. It was there before we started, but it was smaller. It had to get a little bit larger for code requirements. So the grading's pretty well complete in there. We'll be planting that area this fall whenever it makes sense to grow grass in that space. Back to the main building, auditorium is prominent / storm shelter. It's the auditorium and storm shelter, the big kind of box you see there. The scaffold set up, the masons are finishing their masonry block. There's kind of some decorative block that you see there. The blue is the air barrier that I'm sure you've heard about over time. The main entrance is right to the left of the auditorium, and this is a big steel canopy. It's really dramatic when you see it. It's big. It designates the main entrance. It's a great area that students and parents and staff can get under if it's raining, et cetera, convenient space. And then we wrap around to the east side of the building. So this big area that projects above the others, that's the main gym. And at this point, they've wrapped up the masonry work. This was in 6-6, so they're kind of working their way up. They finished it at this point, and I just have a little bit of masonry to go. Next up, we'll be installing glass and closing in those areas for the main gym. The smaller area to the left is the auxiliary gym. So, oh. So these are the dials that we revisit on a monthly basis. We have an escalation allowance. It's been holding pretty steady at about 14% expended, and we don't foresee a big expenditure on that allowance. So everything's going well there. The built to date amount is 68%, I believe, which is appropriate for the state of work that we're in. Everything's going great. We're excited. Lots of energy on the side, and yeah, it's really coming together. So happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. Board, any discussion?
I seen some rooftop units in. Are they some of them still coming in?
Yeah, so every 2 weeks we're setting rooftop units. We set 3 of them last week, or this week we set 3. 2 weeks from now we're gonna have a few more to set. So we've got, just kind of counting in my head, I think we've got about 7 or 8 of them set. There's about 20 total. So yeah, it's going well.
So I take it all the roofing's done?
Yeah, roofing's complete. There's a couple small areas they need to come back, like the top of the canopies. The main building is, roofing's done, we're weathered in, and yeah, in good shape there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, Board, I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda for June 15th, 2023 as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, Board, I'd like a motion to approve the practices of wellness curriculum as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Or like a motion to approve the foundations of wellness curriculum as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion? Make a few points. I'm going to be voting against this one. I brought up some concerns during the Academic Advisory Committee, shared those with the administration around some of the way that the lenses through which some of the standards are taught, specifically the 2 units of the 4 around self-esteem and emotional intelligence. There's some questions, I think, in the scientific community about whether those aspects are widely agreed upon by scientists in the field. So I'm not an expert on that. It's easy enough to look it up on the internet and find scientific articles on one side or the other. So I think reasonable people can disagree on whether those are real or not. But my objection is really that if they're not widely agreed upon, I don't think they're lenses through which we should teach our students in K through 12 schools. So that's the nature of my objection here.
I just have a quick question. Connie, I know you've touched base on this, but can you remind how much time has been put into this curriculum by our teams? It wasn't like a quick Google search, right?
It wasn't a Google search. I can tell you the kind of process. I can tell you the process that we used for. We wrote both classes together, so it's not just the wellness course. It's also it's not just foundations. It's also practices of wellness. We have a class right now called Teen Health and Wellness. It's a course that we've offered for, don't quote me, about 12 years. And in the recent years, the 3 teachers that teach it, it's 1 teacher at each of our high schools, those 3 educators have come together and they've just had conversations that our students really need more time. So the conversations have gotten richer and in more depth over the last few years, and they needed more time to cover the content in the course. They're struggling to get it all in because of the rich content or the rich discussions that kids are having, which is a great thing. And so it led to some conversations with the content leader and some interest in developing a second course, kind of a companion course to teen health and wellness. When we started having initial conversations, one of our first thing is, are we sure kids would even take a second course if we offered it, or have they met their need with the first course that we offered? And so they did give a survey to the kids that were currently enrolled across the district in the class. A couple of them said that they were seniors and they obviously wouldn't have a desire to take it again. I think 2 kids said, my schedule wouldn't allow another elective, so I wouldn't take it, not because I'm not interested, but because I don't have room in my schedule for another elective. And all the other kids that were currently enrolled in the class said, yes, if you had a part 2, I would take the part 2 class. That's something of interest to me, and I would enroll in it if offered. And so with the teachers seeing a need for it and a desire from the students to continue to participate in it, they pursued the development of it's not really a level 2 class, but a companion class to it. So they also asked the kids as part of that survey what were the most valuable and least valuable parts of the course. And in those survey results, kids really talked a lot about stress management, mental health, general life skills as part of what they felt like they needed, wanted, appreciated as part of that class. So in the fall of 21, the content leader and those 3 teachers came together and they started to kind of scope out the new course. So what would we keep in? It's Foundations of Wellness is the first course and Practices of Wellness is the second course. I'll just say course 1 and 2 for me so I don't get them mixed up. But they started to talk about what would we keep in course 1, what would shift to course 2, what would be additional content that would be added to 1 or additional content that would be added to 2. There was a workshop that our content leader had attended with the director of health and wellness at DESE, and they pointed out that the Missouri Learning Standards are extremely out of date, and our state director has actually directed us to use the national standards. And so exploring those national standards, that provided a lot of direction on what would we be including in these classes. And so the class you'll notice, well, let me finish. We went through the normal new course proposal process. That involves talking with department chairs, talking with administrators, talking with academic team, talking with academic advisory, and they got yeses along the way as they went through that typical process that we follow. Then they came back at the beginning of the year, and the 3 teachers who taught the course were again excited to start that process. They spent some time unpacking standards, writing the curriculum. They had a few release days in the fall, and then kind of finished up the work in the spring. Both courses are a 1-semester elective. They are for juniors and seniors, both classes. They're intended that kids would take the foundations class and then go on to take the practices course. However, it's not a prerequisite that you can't take practices unless you've taken foundations. So the desire is that you take foundations and then practices, but there could be a scenario where a student doesn't take foundations and wants to enroll in practices, and that would be okay. The other thing that this would allow, at times we have a junior or senior that enrolls in the district and they come to us without a health credit. Our students take a required 9th grade health class, and our students could then take this class as upperclassmen to get their health credit instead of us putting them in the freshman health class as an upperclassman, which you can imagine is not a popular option. We anticipate, just based on the current enrollment over the last couple years, we anticipate that we would run, depending on the high school, it's more popular at some schools than others, we anticipate running 1 to 3 sections per year of foundations, the first course. And the second class practices, we would anticipate, depending on the school, running 1 or 2 sections of the practices class. So just to give you an idea of the typical enrollment, 1 to 3 sections, 1 to 2 sections for the school year of those 2 classes. It's taught by a teacher from our PE health department in each of our high schools. And the 3 that would teach the class were all part of the process of writing and working on the course. Chad, I don't know that this will fully answer your question, but I know that part of what they looked at or talked about were just some of the, We've talked a lot about Ms. Vargas's work over the last few board meetings. I hate to call her out again, but we look a lot at the local job growth reports and what are the jobs in our community that employers have available for our students that stay in our community. We want them to stay in our community. We also talk a lot about the skills that employers tell us we need kids to come to us with these skills so they're more employable. And this class aligns with a lot of that. So when we talk about the jobs that kids would have, I think I jotted down exercise trainers, and 2 of the top 10 lists, exercise trainers was one of them, child, family, schools, social workers was one of them. And some of the skills covered in this class would align with the skills in those 2 career fields. We talk about when you look at the shortcomings of job applicants, they talk about lack of communication skills, lack of interpersonal skills, lack of teamwork, lack of collaboration, an inability to interact with people who are different from them. And that's exactly what this part of what this course gets at. So just some of the logic behind this alignment of standards, but what we're covering in the classes. So they're excited about it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No. Motion carries. Board would like a motion to approve the May monthly financial report as presented.
So moved.
Second. DeRompis?
Vice President Cook, I just want to point out one thing, that there is an additional report this month. You'll see in there the Board of Education May schedule of investments. Policy 3160 requires that investment reports will be prepared by the Chief Operating Officer or CFO for review by the Board and Superintendent of Schools, but our policy doesn't distinguish how often that should take place. Historically, they've been done intermittently for the Board, but it is a report now that the Finance Department will provide on a monthly basis to provide you an update ongoing for our investments.
Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Board would like a motion to approve the purchases over $7,500 as presented.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Ponder and Mr. Harmon? Any discussion?
Yeah, as you know, I had questions about the one that for the St. Louis County Parks. I just want to bring this up that I think it's, I know it's probably the only option that we have, but it has to be difficult for some of the parents who live out here to take their kids across the river for practices and things like that. But I've been assured that every option was looked at to have our kids practice on our fields around here. I just hope that they hurry up and get Francis Hall North done.
We agree, and I will point out that we do transport the students from school to the practice fields. It is their responsibility to get themselves back home, though, and they do that usually working together with other students.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Could I?
I'm sorry?
Sorry,
Go ahead.
just real quick, so I know you guys are. Speaker.
So you did answer the question regarding doing a cost-benefit analysis going forward for Education Plus. I'm curious, as we track throughout the year, I wonder if you have any ideas. I know it's real quick, you've only had a few days. What ideas or what areas are you going to be tracking so that you're going to be able to compare the cost-benefit of Education Plus versus something else that might be available?
Yeah, our policy asks for or expects a cost-benefit analysis of cooperative purchasing agreements. And that is just one portion of the membership benefits that we get with our partnership with Education Plus. So our commitment is to look at any relationship we would have with an outside organization, to look at all aspects of it. Specific to the cooperating purchases piece, what we do is we have a list of the vendors that they've approved and the percentages of that we would get off on purchases we would do with those companies. The next step for us would be to look at what purchases we made in the last year, so what savings did we actually realize, and then to work with our buildings and our department leaders to make sure that they're utilizing those relationships when they can and purchasing from those vendors through the Educational Plus relationship to make sure we're maximizing that portion of the membership.
I just want to say that came up before about Ed Plus, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I remember like a big cost savings paper. I don't remember if it was toilet paper or printer paper. Just off the top of my head. Just remember it came up years ago.
And not having done the full analysis, that's why we didn't want to provide you misinformation. We believe our largest purchase this year was with CDW, the technology company that we work with. And again, the different vendors they work with, it ranges from 5 to 25, 30% discount we could possibly get.
So how are you going to coordinate that? Or who's going to be responsible for tracking, or who's working to make sure that you're utilizing it to the utmost?
So for the cooperative purchasing piece, that will be done through the finance department. Like I said, it's two things. One, monitoring the historical purchases, what we saved this year, working with schools and buildings to make sure that they're taking advantage of those moving forward. And if it's not something that we would take advantage of or we're not realizing the benefit, taking that into consideration in continuing the membership moving forward. What I'll point out, though, is that, again, the cooperative purchasing piece of the relationship with Education Plus is just one small part. In addition, we get technology sources from them. We get our subscription to Discovery Education through them, that it's paid through them, which is a little bit over $50,000 if we were paying that out of pocket. There are human resources services that we utilize. They work with the MoReap system, which allows us to post all of our job openings for free. And if we were to do all of those postings specifically through the Post Dispatch or other marketing mechanisms, that would be thousands of dollars, so there's savings there. In addition to all the professional development opportunities we take advantage of for not only administrators, also teachers, as well as support staff in the district. So it's a unique partnership. The history is that it's a nonprofit organization that was actually developed by superintendents when it started to be an organization that is funded by member schools to support the schools that are out there. So it drives a lot of our professional development work, a lot of our professional learning networks within the district, and some of that's hard to monetize. So we will, though, look at all of that across the board as we will with all ongoing subscriptions and memberships that we have.
The St. Louis Area Business Health Coalition membership, I know it's not a lot of money in the scheme of things, but $13,000 to employ some pharmacy benefit managers. To me, and being in the healthcare field, I understand how all of that works. I'm not sure that they're always as efficient as they claim to be in their savings. I would just encourage those that are putting this forward to keep close track of exactly how much they do spend on drugs in a year, so that we can have more of an accurate cost savings, just because there are people, you're perfectly welcome as a district to send out a request for a proposal on your own. You don't necessarily need a pharmacy benefit manager, but just something that you might consider moving forward.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Board would like a motion to approve the purchases over $7,500 for Gateway Security as presented.
Second.
Mr. Ponder, Mr. Lang. Any discussion?
I think this was, request was based upon last year's security costs. Is that correct? Not necessarily like a whole calendar year, not a fiscal year, which is fine. Either way, fiscal or calendar year, I don't care. But what I'm getting at is that I think that we're getting some SROs that are going to be paid for by the county. I know those are probably two different functions, but would that in any way affect our proposed costs for Gateway Security?
Not at this time. It's a separate contract. The SROs, I would say that our security guards provide very different services than our SROs, and we would continue to utilize them because they serve as at the entry points at the high schools in those guard areas. They also provide additional supervision help when it comes to afternoon activities, evening events, and those such things. I believe that part of the reason it was pulled, think Vice President Cook was going to share President Bertrand's thoughts about it.
Yes, President Bertrand, who couldn't be here tonight for a personal matter, felt that this is the last year of a 5-year contract. It presents an opportunity to take a look at our security measures overall to determine if we continue with the status quo that's been effective for the district, or if we should be thinking about future changes. President Bertrand supports the approval of the contract. He would be supportive also of an in-depth review over the next year to determine if any changes would be prudent, and wondered if the board members would be supportive of giving this direction to the district. So I'm certainly supportive of that. I've discussed it with him. I do think it's worthwhile to, since this will be the last year of our 5-year, maybe we look at if it's advantageous to continue with Gateway, or we look at another avenue for providing those services.
Yeah, and I think I would agree as well. And I think when you guys first got on the board last year, we talked a little bit about Gateway and some of what other districts do, possibly even bringing people in-house or thinking outside the box here.
Administration supports that review. It would be looking at the services they provide, the role that they fulfill within the district. Are there other ways to do that? And that could be anything from other companies potentially continuing this, going through a RFP process, or looking at the possibility of bringing such positions in-house moving forward. And all of those options would be considered over this next year. And we'd be able to share that information with the board.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, board, I'd like a motion to approve the 2023 to 2024 benefit plan proposal as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Pushkar, Mr. Ponder. Dr. Ruppus.
Board, as a reminder, at our last meeting, we shared our health insurance renewal recommendations for the 23-24 plan year. I won't go through the entire presentation again. There have been no adjustments made since we made that presentation. As a reminder, that we are recommending changing our flex spending plan administrator from Paylocity to ASI Flex. That went out for bid. For the dental services, there are no plan design changes for the PPO plan, but we would move from Aetna to Delta Dental for the claims administration. We're recommending eliminating the Cigna Standard and Cigna Plus plans under the DHMO plan and renewing Family Dental for 1 year with no plan changes. For medical, there is a recommended increase of out-of-pocket costs and deductibles for almost all plans, but no increase in the employee-paid premiums for the 23-24 plan year. The board contribution would increase by 3%, and that would also, the board would also cover the increased cost of the employee portion for next year.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the fiscal year 2024 budget recommendation as presented.
So moved.
Ms. Pushkar.
Second.
Mr. Harmon. Dr. Ruppus.
Yes, sir. Board, also at the June 1st meeting, Carol Embray presented a detailed presentation of our budget recommendation based on the work that she and our Director of Finance, Jacob Meyer, the department, and all of our building and district leaders had completed. We're presenting a balanced budget for the 23-24 school year that would end 2024 with an estimated fund balance of 22.79%. This is a conservative budget as we continue to be cautious regarding future revenues on enrollment, revenues based on enrollment, the ending of the pandemic provision and its impact on the basic formula, uncertain fit and transportation funding beyond next school year, and the depletion of ESSER funds through next school year. Next year's budget, you'll remember from the presentation, moves the self-insurance fund from the general fund into a separate fiduciary fund. That will allow for us to have a better tracking of the revenues and expenditures of that fund and overall our self-insurance program. I also want to remind everyone that the recommended budget is based on our best analysis at this time, and that we will provide routine budget amendments to the board as needed next year as we realize actual revenues and expenditures. We also shared during that presentation and during our budget meetings that we will engage the Board of Education as well as other stakeholders and work to review all revenue and expenditures next year As we strive for operational efficiency and ongoing financial stability, we recognize we have an opportunity in continuing to be open and transparent to talk more about our budget, to help our community understand our funding mechanisms and how our dollars are spent, and as we make decisions for moving forward, to get input from stakeholders in that process.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, Board, I'd like a motion to approve the amendment to renew cost plus fee food service management contract as presented. Mr. Ponder, second. Jane Pushkar. Dr. Rumpus, or is this Mr. Myers?
So I will turn this over to Jacob Myers. And Board of Education and to our community, this is the first time he's come to the podium, but this is our Director of Finance who joined us at the beginning of May, Jacob Myers.
So, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be at Francis Howell. I'm excited. As a district that provides food services through a contracted service vendor, the district is required by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to approve an amendment to renew the cost and fees for the management contract annually. In our case, this is the fourth and final renewal within our 5-year agreement with Sodexo. So we will be bringing a new bid to the board next year to look at contracted food services. DESE provides a maximum increase total equal to the CPI, Consumer Price Index change. And this year that was 8.6%. Sodexo agreed to a negotiated reduced rate of 4%, which is the same rate increase as last year. It will result in a total budget impact of approximately $18,599.
Thank you. Board, any questions?
I have one quick question. So you said this is the final year, and next year there could be a new contract?
So we're required to go out to bid for those contracted services every 5 years by DESE.
How about also maybe bringing it back in-house?
I think that would all be part of the analysis as we reevaluate the food service program.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion, Board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, Board, I'd like a motion to approve setting the following meal prices for the 2023-24 school year as presented. Ms. Pushkar. Mr. Ponder. Mr. Myers?
So, as a participant in our federal food service program, the district is required to set prices based on various calculations determined by the Department of Agriculture, which typically results in an increased price of 10 cents, which is the maximum limit allowed by the district. We could go over 10 cents, but that is what would be required. Currently, there's an exemption to this requirement to utilize the calculation and allows the district to maintain a flat meal price if the food service account has a positive balance, which we do. After reviewing our food service account and discussing these findings with Sodexo, we feel as though the program is in a position to maintain the current pricing level. This would be reevaluated annually. Adult meals are not included under the exemption and do not have a price increase maximum. The district is required by the Department of Agriculture to utilize a formula when calculating these prices, and they have been presented for you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Board, any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
The ayes have it. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the a la carte prices for the 2023-24 school year as presented. Ms. Pushkar. Mr. Ponder. Mr. Myers again.
The district is required to adjust a la carte items based on the total food cost and the proportion of usage to the program. The purpose is to ensure that these non-food program foods are not being supplemented by the revenue of the reimbursable meals. The district and Sodexo have reviewed the prices based on inflation of purchased food
and are recommending the increases as presented.
Board, any discussion?
Yeah, overall, how much do you think those prices went up? At a
They're-
percentage?
A percentage
Yeah.
of total food?
Yeah.
I have it right here. I believe they are calculating an 8% increase in food costs.
Yeah, that's not.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
The ayes have it. Next up, we have policy review, an informational item. First reading of several policies here. I believe Director Lang wanted to have a little bit of discussion here.
Yeah. After seeing the policy change recommendation, I wanted to make sure I weighed in with my thoughts on it. I personally don't feel that there's a need for a policy would automatically sunset. Resolutions are not really a common thing around here. In my 8 years on the board, we've probably had 3 or 4. I understand that, you know, the board elections are every year and board members could theoretically change every year. Like we have here 5 different board members in 2 years. I'd be in total support of a policy brought back for a first read in July that would bring a resolution up for an open meeting agenda item to be discussed and voted on by the board. This way, to get the resolution adopted is the same way, and it's pretty transparent. You know, example that I think of is the resolution in response to the racism and discrimination that I proudly signed in August of 2020, and feel it's important, you know, just disappearing like it never existed without even having discussion, it just doesn't sit well with me. Personally. And if we, you know, we have discussion about it, you know, you can have the new members who weren't here sign on to it, change it, resend it, but at least it's done transparent, rather than just disappearing like it never existed. And ultimately, after meeting and discussing it, and that happens, but at least it was transparent and open. So that's my thoughts on it. I know we don't normally discuss, read, but we normally don't have these policy changes happen like this.
Sure, so board, happy to have discussion here. I'll just remind, this is a discussion on a policy review, a specific policy. So in accordance with Open Meetings Act, we're permitted to talk about policies on here. Discussing a specific resolution, I believe would be out of order. It's not on the agenda to discuss that particular resolution, but also remind the board that the board has voluntarily agreed, as was just reminded to us at the last board orientation meeting in early June here, that we all voluntarily agreed to a board policy to support prior decisions of the board. So I would say we should tread lightly criticizing other actions of the board, certainly in open session. So it's going to make it difficult to follow those rules that we set to ourselves, and also explain this. So happy to think of a way around it. This discussion item here tonight is
just discussion.
It was just added here this evening, so I wasn't planning on a lot of discussion here tonight. So not fully prepared for that, but just a few thoughts there. But as we navigate here.
Okay, just a question. As far as, I guess, moving forward, which is more binding, a resolution or a policy? And then my second question would be, which one is more broad, a resolution or a policy?
My opinion is that a policy is binding. A resolution, I don't necessarily know is. But that's my opinion on that. Sure, I'd also like
you know
to
why I'm making that point.
Sure.
If you have two, say they're similar documents, you know, which one, your feet are held to the fire at some point, which one's more binding? So,
Well,
and that goes with all resolutions and policies, not just one.
I agree, and I have no problem with a policy where it comes back before the board, just not sunsetting. So we can still make a policy to where we have discussion about it. And then change it, alter it, let the people who weren't involved with it sign on, change, or rescind.
We're sunsetting resolutions, right?
That's the,
Not policies. Is that correct?
That's correct. The policy that's being discussed here is policy 0299. That was proposed. And that policy would, for those who haven't read it, would sunset policies of prior boards, basically. As soon as a majority of board members no longer signed on to the resolution in question, I'm sorry, I think I said policy earlier, the resolution in question, the resolution would automatically sunset. There's an informational item placed on the board agenda for the public and board members to see what resolutions are there, and then if the board so chooses to re-adopt that, they certainly have that ability to add it back to the agenda at that time, or before it's sunset. That's why there's a 75-day window in there to give basically any new board pretty much to the end of June, give or take, to make those changes or re-sign a resolution if they so choose.
I just think that the transparency part would be the way you adopt a resolution is by an open session in a meeting and members vote. So in order to get rid of it, I think it would be fair to go about it the same way.
Well, in my opinion, the policy does that. I mean, the board is openly, we're all agreeing that this is the way we're going to address resolutions going forward if we implement this policy. The policy is certainly transparent. It's been, I guess, just an informational note here about policies. This particular policy was submitted as a PIN form by a board member, by me. A comment was made earlier about a policy committee not approving 4 PIN forms. I'd just like to clarify there that since those 4 PIN forms were submitted by Board of Education members, they were brought to the policy committee for comments. It's not necessarily required for a Board of Education member to send a policy proposal or a PIN form into the policy committee, but that's something that we have done to seek feedback. In theory, a board member could bring a policy to the board, add it to the agenda for a first or for an immediate approval without a first and second read. So this is something that we have done. We've proposed the PIN form, sent it to the policy committee. Here we're doing a first reading. In July, we'll do a second. If there's any board comments or suggestions to the policy, I'll certainly take those into consideration over the next several weeks if there's a way to improve it. But that's, in my view, given our authority to pass policy and really our responsibility, I think we're being transparent here and going with a normal amount of review and transparency here, with the exception of a policy committee vote, because it's not necessarily a policy committee decision to bring a policy proposal that a board member submits. So that's the reason that the policy committee didn't necessarily vote on it. Feedback was sought, and that feedback was provided to President Bertrand. So
I'll send some more message. We'll get some communication. It's just a new thing. So.
All right, moving on to superintendent comments. Dr. Rumpus.
Thank you, Vice President Cook. Board, we initially had an agenda item tonight under purchases over $7,500 to renew our district membership with Character Plus. I just wanted to point out to you and to the public that it was the administration who requested to remove the item from tonight's agenda for additional consideration. We do value the character education work and celebrate the state and national recognition that Independence Elementary received for their work this year and over the last couple of years, and the work taking place throughout the district. This specific membership offers benefits that we've not been maximizing over the last couple of years. We have a new Director of Student Services beginning July 1, and we want to give her an opportunity to learn more about the program and the benefits of that membership, and to work with our principals to develop a plan for next year. And if the Character Plus membership is part of that plan, we would bring it back to the board at an upcoming meeting. But that was the reason why we asked for it to be removed from the agenda this evening. We are very excited to announce a new program called Citizens in Our School that we shared with our stakeholders yesterday. This program will provide an immersive opportunity for community members, business leaders, parents, and others to learn more about the operations of the district. We believe this is the first of its kind program to be done in a school district. It's modeled on some other leadership experience programs out there in the county and with police departments and with other organizations. And we really see it as an opportunity to continue building trust and transparency with our community by creating a coalition and a group of well-informed citizens that better understand the work that we're doing and can share some input with us. We're piloting this with an inaugural class and are accepting applications through July 21st. There is a small fee for participation. We've received a couple questions about that. One, there is a cost to feed the people who participate. We'll be using buses and transportation for different events to go around, and so we're not making any money off of this. It really is to defray the cost that the district might have in providing this opportunity. And we're excited to see where it goes, and if there are interested community members that want to participate, you can access all the information on our website. While summer school camps and vacation station and sports summer training have started, there has also been a lot of adult learning taking place in the 2 weeks since school ended. I just wanted to highlight that our school leadership teams, so we had our principals, assistant principals, athletic directors, along with teachers, counselors, librarians, and other staff in the buildings come together for 2 days last week to reflect on last year's school improvement plans and to begin planning for next year. We had teams of teachers who participated in curriculum boot camps that took place last week with our content leaders. And we also had hundreds of teachers participating along with administrators in our PLC Institute that we offered internally. So the learning does not stop, and I just want to thank everyone that's been giving up the beginning of their summer to come in and continue to do work for the district. I also want to say good luck to 3 Francis Howell School District students or recent graduates who will compete in the National Skill USA Leadership and Skill Competition that's being held in Atlanta this weekend. This competition is the largest showcase of skilled trades and skills competitions in the world, and they'll have more than 15,000 students, teachers, leaders, and trades representatives participating. Career and tech ed students from across the country will compete in over 100 different categories at this 5-day event. So I want to wish luck to Francis Howell Central senior Ian Edmonds and recent FHC graduate Anthony Gaglio and recent Francis Howell North graduate Catherine Miller, who will all be there representing Francis Howell School District. And last board, as we conclude the final board meeting of the 22-23 school year, I would just like to thank you and our staff and community for a great year and for the support. We have a lot to celebrate and that we have been celebrating that was accomplished this year by our students and our staff. We also recognize that we have a lot of opportunities for improvement as we look to next school year. I don't take this role or the trust that you placed in me lightly, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to serve the community by working with you, an incredible leadership team, and getting to serve our 16,000 students and families. Thank you.
Board of Education, any comments, requests?
I just have a small comment. My grandson started Vacation Station for the first time for Becky David, but it's at Harvest Ridge, and it's awesome. Everybody's doing a great job. And I noticed my backyard backs up to Cosley, and I think Vacation Station for Elementary or something's there, and the line is pretty extravagant, so I think it's pretty popular.
I just want to thank Dr. Rumpus and his team for making the transition run smoothly for us, probably not for you, but smoothly for us, and being patient with us as we make our way.
I'd like to share those two sentiments, Dr. Rumpus. Nearing your end of your first year here, first year in this role, and it's been a real pleasure, and look forward to many more additional years. Similarly, my children are also in Vacation Station. I have to applaud the teachers and staff there at Independence Elementary. They're taking on a big challenge, taking on my kids there, but they've managed so far, and more importantly, the kids are thrilled to go, which is great. Also, as was discussed earlier about policies, the one policy at 0299 was discussed a little bit. There's another policy that is proposed there that I brought, which I'm proud to bring, It's Pete 2180. This policy proposal is, it effectively requires the flying of an American flag in every classroom, so that when students say the Pledge of Allegiance, they're able to face the flag. So in the event that there's not any classrooms left without an American flag in the Francis Howell School District, hopefully that will all come to a close very soon. So just as yesterday was Flag Day, I thought that's an appropriate thing to just highlight here. So. Or like a motion to adjourn open session and go back into closed session.
So moved.
Ms. Pushkar and Mr. Pond. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Have a good night, everyone.